So, welcome back to your midweek edition of the Theatres of Dreams football podcast. And now, today we're one person down, and it's Erin, greatly missed by the way, but she's busy. But what you've got is Rod Maxwell and Harry Morell here, and we've got actually, as always, a lot to talk about. Harry, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Just still sort of reeling from the game on Monday night. Who thought that Monday night football was boring was obviously very much mistaken because that game at Old Trafford was, I think the best word to describe it is bonkers, pretty much. Normally I'd be criticising us conceding 4 goals, but yeah, absolute bonkers game of football. Some brilliant free kicks and Amrin potentially changing to a 4-3-3. I'm certainly very happy. But yeah, ready to get into this.
And how are your festive vibes overall? Are you festive ready, or you still got a wee way to go?
Well, when I was at Old Trafford, I had my Santa hat on, and let's just say that was it was a warm addition to the stands, and I think I've watched pretty much every Christmas film bar Die Hard 2, which is normally a Christmas Eve tradition in our household. So yeah, feeling very festive and looking forward to the Boxing Day football as well.
Well, we'll come on to Monday night's game, which I unfortunately missed, but I missed it for a very good reason. I went to see the legend that is Robert Plant, ex of Led Zeppelin, in a folk group called Saving Grace. And I'll tell you now, I'll come on to it later. I'd love to do a review about this gig because it was one of the best gigs I have ever been to. It was unbelievable. Anyway, it doesn't match though the drama of Monday night. But first of all, let's talk about all the women and the FA Cup because their run is over. But it was such a really good run, wasn't it?
Oh, it was an absolute fantastic run. It was the furthest the squad has ever got in the competition. We'd followed it all the way through this podcast itself, and also with the Radio Robins team. And unfortunately, it came short up against York, who won 3-0. But I tell you what, an absolute massive positive for the women's squad because going so far in that competition is a phenomenal achievement, and it also lives up to Altrincham has always had a special connection with the FA Cup, be it the men's team who have are FA Cup giant killers, and now you can see the women's team that they're starting to forge their own path through the competition. Obviously, it's always a shame when you come out of the cup because it's thinking who you could have had next and all of this. But I think the entire squad can hold their heads up high, and also having it at the J Davidson Stadium as well, third round FA Cup action. It's where it should be taking place. So yeah, I think everybody around the club is very happy. Only slight disappointment is we're not through to round 4, but yeah, congratulations to all those involved.
And just, I think, a reminder, Ulti were one of the lowest placed teams to get to this round of the FA Cup, weren't they?
Yes, they were. At this point, this is where all of the championship squads come in, and you start to see some big names. It's not quite the fourth round where the Women's Super League teams come in, but the likes of Newcastle, Nottingham Forest, Sheffield United, Birmingham City, Charlton, Sunderland, all these big names, Crystal Palace. It's it was a tough draw, and York City as well. Yeah, they it would have had quite a decent draw had we got through to the fourth round against Chatham Town. But hey ho, look, it's happened now. But yeah, I think it's the fact that the way that they got through the competition as well, through the second round and the first round, quite convincingly as well. I think this time next year they'll be hoping to try and go that extra step and try and get into that fourth round.
Let's stay with Ulti for the minute because the men's team were in the English FA Trophy third round down at Telford and they lost that game 4-3. They were 2-0 up at the break. And then a brace for Stenson and a goal for Armstrong, first of all, in the 80, and a brace for Stenson. Basically, 4 goals from Telford in the second half. Won them the game. Now, interestingly, the chairman this morning has just released a statement, and in the statement, and I don't know whether this is a positive about the women's team or a dig at the men's team. But in talking about the Aldi Women's FA Cup defeat, he said it was nice to see Neil Gibson and Lee Jones at the game showing their support. Maybe the men's first team squad should have shown up too, not only to support the girls, but to see their courage, commitment, fighting spirit, and give everything attitude. This is Mark Luby, the Aldi chairman. He said, finally, we have a very tough run of fixtures coming up. I hope that after Saturday, the players have looked at themselves in the mirror and accept those standards midfielders are not the ones required to play for this club. Quite unprecedented, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's normally when you see the chairman's updates, it's sort of indications if there's a change in, say, business direction or if there's a change on the actual board itself. But when I read this, I was very, very, very surprised because it's not that often you hear a chairman speak so candidly about a football club, and I think he's sort of right with what he's saying there in the fact that this was a time where it was meant to be celebrating the club, the fact that the women's team had done such an outstanding job to get through. Through the competition and also having it at the Jake Davidson Stadium, it's yeah, I think it's sort of venting a lot of frustration, and it's not too often as well that you see exclamation points in official addresses. And the line, they certainly could have all learned something after what happened at Telford with an exclamation point. I think it says a lot. There's this frustration because Telford, 19th in the National League North, you really should be able to achieve well there because we haven't had a great run in the FA Cup. We struggled to get through to the first round, and obviously we're knocked out in the first round. And then the trophy, which is something that we got through to I believe it was either the semi-finals a couple of years ago, just losing out to Halifax Town whilst under Parky. This is a fantastic opportunity to get some momentum in that squad, and what it seems to have done is the opposite. So yeah, I think we can spend an awful lot of time dissecting this and sort of trying to see what the chairman says. But I think one thing is this is something we've never seen before and not the sort of thing you'd be expecting to see on the Wednesday of the week when we have such a big game at home against Rochdale, who are currently top of the league.
What I found interesting about it also was the fact that he wasn't in any way referring to Neil Gibson and Lee Jones, who had just come into the club. He was pointing at the players because normally when a chairman comes out and mentions the manager in any negative context, especially around this time of year, you're sort of thinking, oh, that's not good for them. That's not the case here. He was very directly sending a message to the men's football team. I've not seen any chairman do that before, but maybe it's the kick up the backside that they need. But anyway, we'll go into sorry.
The last thing I just want to say on that is I just with this I sort of I hope that all this is as you say is a kick up the backside because we have had some pretty poor performances across a lot of the competitions, and with Neil Gibson and Lee Jones when they were appointed as the first team coaches, there was some positivity in the squad. It seemed like the club had taken the time to appoint what seemed to be the right man. I still believe it is the right man. They didn't rush into anything. They gave him his opportunity, and he proved that they were able to perform at the level that they needed to. I'm just hoping that this really is sort of like for the Rochdale game, sort of saying, come out with you, we show us what you were, show us your value as well, and show us that you actually want to fight for the club. But it'll be interesting to see what reaction we get from the 11 men on the pitch on Friday come 7:45. But yeah, very, very surprising. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the fallout is from this. I'm hoping, as I said, it's nothing too major, but very surprised reading this at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, that's for sure.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. This turned to the Premier League and football on Saturday, actually. And the lunchtime kickoff was Chelsea versus Everton. It was a pretty straightforward 2-0 win for Chelsea, 2 goals in the first half. Palmer in 21 and Gusto in 45. Maresca is keeping them on track, isn't he?
Yeah, he seems to be. It's as we said with this Premier League season, it's been very bizarre. As in, 1 minute as in looking at United, we've gone from vying for second place, and then we're down in 16th, and that seems to be the case with Chelsea. They're now in fourth place, only 3 points off United. But yeah, it was a pretty comfortable display. Cole Palmer back in the squad, back on the score sheet as well. I think a lot of Chelsea fans will be happy to see that. And then as well, they played last night in the League Cup and they're advancing there as well. So Maresca, he may have his doubters, but he seems to be doing a pretty good job as things go at the moment.
Yeah, quite steady, Eddie, really. It was an undramatic Liverpool for once, is what I've written down here about their 2-0 win over Brighton Hove Albion. After all the drama around Salah, who was on the bench, an Ekitike goal in the first minute it was a lovely opener, by the way. And then a second goal for him on 16 meant that Liverpool beat Brighton Hove Albion 2-0. Quite regimental, really. But it'll be nice to get rid of some of the noise at the weekend.
Definitely. I think normally when there's an injury, you see a player go down, you're a bit concerned. But I think the fact that Mo Salah was able to come on in the 26th minute because of the injury to Gomez, I think that was sort of received a lot better than it was it just being an injury. He sort of finished with a smile on his face and an assist as well. If it was his farewell, it's a good way to go. I'm just sort of hoping that this is just sort of put it on ice for a little bit, all the drama, because yeah, he's a fantastic player. He's a fantastic asset to that football club. He's now got the opportunity to go and be a fantastic asset and player for Egypt, as we know he is. And Liverpool beating Brighton Hove Albion, who actually are quite a decent squad, and for once they've won at Anfield, which is something I never thought I would say. But yeah, just a great goal from Ekitike, and yeah, it's a perfect result for Slot and a perfect result for Salah all in all.
So, of course, a lot of clubs said goodbye to their African Cup of Nations or AFCON players at the weekend. It's going to change a few things. We'll come to what that might mean for United in a minute. Sticking with Saturday's results, it was 2-0, 2-3, sorry, 3-2 to Fulham away at Burnley. A disappointing result this for Burnley, but Fulham have been quite good this season, haven't they?
Oh, they've been very very good. They've given United a difficult run when we went down. Harry Wilson seems to be playing, coming into the form of his life at the moment. He scored a brilliant goal against Tottenham, and Fulham just seem to be moving slowly but steadily in the right direction. And we've seen that a lot. I think for Scott Parker, it's not the greatest start or greatest return to the Premier League. I think it's something like his eighth consecutive loss as the Burnley manager, which is uh, the most there's been. Burnley, obviously, we know them to be a bit of a yo-yo club, but they would have thought that they would have been able to keep Turf Moor as that sort of fortress, which is in the Championship. I know they've been having some difficult games, but again, it may have been a close game as the scoreline would suggest, but still they haven't taken any points away there. They are only 5 points off safety, which is a lot better than Wolves are, who are still rock bottom of the table. But if you look at the likes of West Ham, Forest, Leeds, they're all coming into form now as well, and that gap will start to increase. So yeah, I think Scott Parker will be looking to try and get some points on the go, because if the form guide is all reds, that's not what you want to be seeing. You want to see at least a couple greys or a green in there every now and again.
And talking about Wolves, I think on Saturday evening it was a case of lucky Arsenal. This ended up 2-1, but Arsenal didn't score any goals. It was two OGs from Wolves that give Arsenal the win, and the second of those coming 4 minutes into extra time at the end of the second half, where the Wolves had levelled it on 90. I mean, I wrote here down it was a game of good crosses, great one-handed save for the Wolves keeper, of course, just before the Arsenal opener, and Wolves' pressure led to the equaliser. But Arsenal, did they get a deserved winner off the head of Jesus wasn't credited for it. An own goal was credited in the extra time. But lucky Arsenal, not boring Arsenal at all.
No, it feels as though that games like this are the sort of ones that define a season. I know it
Yes.
always helps when you got first versus last place, but Wolves were bitterly unlucky because they haven't won a single game yet. They're only 2 points at the moment, and they're currently on track to break the one record you don't want to break in the Premier League, which is Derby's point tally. And they were so close to getting a draw. They seem to be moving in the right direction, getting some confidence into that squad as well. And it's just bitterly disappointing for them. It's not the greatest game of football I've ever watched.
Mm.
Arsenal, they lucky this is the sort of thing, as we've always said, it's two own goals that could win you the title.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think for Rob Edwards, I think it's had they even got a draw out of this game, No Wolves going into that game. Nobody expected anything other than an Arsenal win. But the fact they could have got a draw, that would have done that club a world of good, world of confidence, especially going into AFCON as well, because they're going to lose some important players for them. But yeah, hey ho, Arsenal, they're not going to care how they go in. They're just going to care the fact that they're increasing that gap at the top of the table and applying that pressure onto the big boys, because we know that Man City, they're slowly climbing up and they're coming after them. So an extra 3 points just gives them a little bit more breathing space up there.
Harry, the shots stats were interesting. Arsenal had 16 shots throughout the game. Wolves only had three, but of those 16 shots, Arsenal only had two on target, and of the three, Wolves had two on target. So you got to say there was something wrong with Arsenal's forward line on Saturday. But anyway, as you say, you're going to have runs like that. Better to be lucky than not. And they rode their luck a little bit on at the weekend, and they came out on top, which is pretty decent for them, really.
Yeah.
Um,
The
well,
one thing I just
go on.
wanted to say as well, I think for Wolves, the only sort of positive you can take from that game, well, obviously, I think losing it in the 94th minute from an own goal, that is bitterly disappointing. But it's the second game on the trot where they've been able to score, because that was something that Wolves weren't able to do for quite a
Yep,
while. So yeah, I
yep.
think Rob Edwards, I know he's got a very difficult job. I know he's gone from Borough, who are, I think they're flying second in the Championship at the moment, to Wolves, who are bottom of the table. But I think he's sort of got to be been listening to a lot of his press conferences, and obviously he's disappointed about the results. But there is seeing some flavour of the sort of like what the Wolves of Rob Edwards could be. And there is some talent in that squad. I just think the fact they've been able to score on two games on the trot, that win is going to come at some point. If it had been against Arsenal, amazing. But they just have to wait another day or another week to see when those 3 points are gonna come their way.
I think Arsenal's starting to feel the breath of Pep City on their neck, aren't they?
Most definitely, most definitely. We knew it was going to happen, and I'm still hoping Arsenal are going to do an Arsenal, because there's only 2 points between City and Arsenal at the top, and hey, Aston Villa, they're only 3 points off as well. Who would have thought Villa would be breathing down their neck as well?
So it's so interesting. In the Women's Super League on Saturday, I'm going to skip actually the championship. There wasn't much to talk about really, apart from Preston North End getting a win 2-1 over Oxford away. Blackburn Rovers losing away at Portsmouth 2-1, sort of localish teams. Women's Super League on Saturday, Everton were against Arsenal at in Liverpool. It was 3-1 to the Arsenal. Arsenal have a good women's team, don't they?
Yeah, well, they're European champions at the moment, and they are pretty good. Chelsea as well. They are, as we've always said, the juggernauts. They got back to winning ways this week. A 3-0 win. But Man City again. I know Erin would be here absolutely singing their praises. But a 6-1 win against Aston Villa. It's exactly the sort of thing you want to do to increase that gap at the top again.
Was that on Sunday?
I believe it was on Sunday. Yeah, it was. Well, Manchester City doing Manchester City things. Their top goal scorer reached 100 goals for the Blues as well. So it seems to be all positivity. Yeah, 6-1 in the end, with a Wiedemar on the score sheet, and then also a hat trick from Shaw, scoring in the 94th minute to get that elusive six goal, and also hitting 100 goals for Manchester City. It's a brilliant achievement. It's showing her talent, and also it's showing the quality in that Manchester City squad, because with the Women's Super League, it's always been Chelsea's competition to lose. That's always been the thing. When are Chelsea going to slip up? When is this going to happen? But this season, it feels like it's Manchester City's to win. As I said, there's 6 points gap at the top. They've all played 11 games, and when you're winning by games with that margin, and your goal difference is really crucial. It's they've got their goal difference is 22 compared to Arsenal's 13. If it does narrow at the end, games like that at Aston Villa are going to do a world of good. And I spoke about Manchester United or briefly there. They avoided quite a not an upset, but it was a thrilling game of football. But Tottenham certainly kept them on their toes with two early first half goals. It was a well thought out draw, and they keep that point difference between United and Tottenham in fourth and fifth.
There you go. We'll come back to Sunday's other games and results in a minute. Finishing off on Saturday in League One, we'll just have a quick dander through there. Wigan Athletic drew with Huddersfield 1-1. Also focusing on sort of more northern teams. Bolton beat Exeter City 2-1. Blackpool actually drew with Lincoln City 2-2. And let's have Stockport County lost at home 3-1 to Stevenage. But Stockport County just, this is their first season back in League One, isn't it, Harry?
I believe it is. Yeah, they seem to be moving in the right direction. I think it's they have had some struggles, but they've also had some brilliant performances as well. They normally have the early kickoff, so I normally catch glimpses of it, and I think they've won quite emphatic style or equalised in emphatic style. But yeah, I lost for Stockport, but hey ho, the one team that I do want to mention, another team from Manchester, Salford City, another 4-3 result at the
Yes.
Vitality. I
Yes.
don't know what's happening there. I don't know if it's something in the what they're serving in the at the break or whatever, or if it's something on the hallowed pitch there. But yeah, they certainly seem to be firing them in for fun anyway, and keeping the match reporters on their toes anyway.
Well, it was a Luke Garbett stoppage time strike secured their win 4-3 over Colchester in League Two, having been 3-1 behind. So, yeah, that shows a bit of bottle, doesn't it, really? Elsewhere in that league, Accrington Stanley were beaten at home 1-0 by Bromley. Oldham got a 2-2 draw at Crawley Town, so not too bad on the road. Tranmere were beaten by Crewe Alexander, a bit of a Northwest derby, 4-1. They were beaten at home. That's a big scoreline there. I think that's it for the Northwest sort of teams. Let's skip into the English FA Trophy. We mentioned it before, but the disappointing result for Altrincham at the weekend was a 4-3 defeat away at AFC Telford in the FA Trophy third round, and they were 2-0 up at the break, Harry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the most frustrating thing because with cup football, league position on whatever league you're in goes out the window. We've seen that at Alti countless times. We see that United with the Grimsby game. It doesn't really matter. You've got 90 minutes worth of football, but if you've got a lead in the 80th minute, really you should be consolidating that and thinking, right, where are we going to next? Let's get ourselves into the next round because the FA Trophy is a fantastic opportunity, especially for a club like Altrincham who aren't really fighting for playoff positions. They're just sort of trying to stay with the big boys in the middle of the pack. That's a great opportunity to rotate some of the players, get some younger lads in the squad, and also keep the fresh legs, especially because we're at the FA Cup, we're at the trophy now. We're not in the National League Cup, whether you like it or not. Yeah, it's going to be bitterly disappointing. But yeah, hats off to Telford. They managed to get 3 goals in very quick succession to win the
Very
game
quick.
4-3. For the neutral, you'd probably say it's a brilliant game of football. But yeah, it's one of those. And again, if you look to see who it's a frustrating game of football again, where it could have gone easily. It could have been straightforward, but we saw it in the FA Cup when we had to go to a replay in the fourth round qualifying, and we saw it in the first round as well. It's just disappointing. So another just a frustrating cup competition um, for for Altrincham, and they would have played Hornchurch, who were in the National League South. So again, it would have been another low league opposition, and you would have thought everything's aligning in the right way for Alti to go on and have a decent cup run.
They were 2-0 up at half time. Telford got one back in 53 minutes. Then Alti made it 3-1 with Crankshaw scoring in the 68th minute. They had only, what, 22 minutes to see out the game at 3-1. And then came a rake of goals 80th minute, 81st minute, and then the 90 plus three. And you sort of think, that's concentration, that's in game management, is it
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, it's it's what would you do differently? I think it would just be part the bus and just as you said, it wasn't as if Telford needed a last gap winner. There was a lot for them to do. I don't know what happened, but again, I think it's time for the squad to take away, reflect, take stock because they've got to do it very quickly because Rochdale riding high, top of the league. They're definitely fighting for the automatic promotion spot. They're going to want to get some points and also goals that come Friday night. I think the only positive really again is Ollie Crankshaw seems to be finding his form. and he seems to be playing tremendously well. Crankshaw's always been struggled with injuries at Old Team. We've not ever properly seen the Crankshaw who was brilliant in the EFL for Stockport, but now he seems to be finding his feet, and we can see that. But yeah, interesting to see what happens come Friday, where the heads of the players are at, and yeah, it's bitterly disappointing. But hey, I suppose now we've only got one focus, which is the National League, and hopefully we can get some points come the weekend.
Turning to Sunday, City keep on ploughing away. They won the game away at Bristol Palace. I think it was the early lunchtime game, 3-0. Haaland got a brace. Foden was on the mark. Their big players are turning up for them, aren't they, really? Whereas Forest had a tremendous win over Tottenham to keep... Thomas Frank is under a lot of pressure, I think, Harry, at Tottenham, isn't he?
Oh, very much so. He would have loved to have the sort of bounce that Sean Dyche has had at Nottingham Forest. He seems to be performing well in Europe and also crucially in the Premier League with Dyche. Nottingham Forest, we know that they shouldn't be where they are in the league, and you can see that since he's come in, they are starting to move on. But Tottenham, it's almost Tottenham doing Tottenham things. But when you're charging as much as you're charging to go and see Tottenham, you're expecting a higher standard of football than what we saw. I tell you what, I think Thomas Frank, I think he's a great coach. I just don't know if it's to do with Spurs or what it is. But yeah, you would expect with the money that they have and the quality of squad that they have that they should be able to at least give Forest a decent game and a bit of competition. But yeah, it's Frank, again, it's one of these things. Football, you never have a lot of time, and every single week we seem to say he's under pressure. He's under pressure, and Tottenham is the sort of club where they will change things if they're not happy with what they see. Look, and Postecoglou won a trophy, and he was out the door after winning them their first bit of silverware in God knows how many years.
It was a brace from Hudson-Odoi on 28 and 50, and actually two assists from Sangari on 28 and 50. And then Hudson-Odoi turned provider for Sangari on 79 minutes. And interesting, if you look at the match stats in that game, in terms of shots, it was 15 to 6. And okay, it was 1.9 to 0.37. But yeah, Tottenham had more possession. You know, you sort of think you got possession, but you're not doing anything with the ball. The big go on.
I was going to say, you talk about pressure, Frank. I think the big pressure has got to be on Vicario because it's another howler of a goalkeeping mistake. We saw it against Fulham where he was practically down the tunnel going for an early drink and an early bath, and Harry Wilson scores a brilliant goal, and then it was another howler at the City ground, which led to Forest's first goal. So I don't know what they're going to do there. I don't know what he's playing at, or what. I don't know if he's playing off Andre Onana's rule book of how to play in goal. But yeah, not a great performance at all by the Tottenham number one.
The big game up in the northeast at the weekend was the Wearside derby, so Weir and Tyneside derby, and unfortunately for Volta Meta, he was the goal scorer, but not for Newcastle. It ended up Sunderland 1, Newcastle 0. Volta Meta scoring an OG on the 46th minute. Newcastle dominated a lot of the game from a possession point of view, but it must have been a poor game. I can't remember seeing the highlights. I did see them, but they had 5 odd shots each on target. It must have been a pretty turd game.
It was a game of football we've been looking forward to for so long. The first time it was a Wearside derby at the Stadium of Lights, and it was a brilliant goal from Voltamado. It just happened to be in the wrong net, and I think it sort of shows as well that that goal came from relentless cross after cross after cross in dangerous positions, and he just thought, I need to get something on it, and obviously he scored a brilliant goal. I don't think Sunderland are really going to care that it wasn't the most exciting game of football. I think if you ask anybody up in the northeast, regardless of whether it's a great game of football or not, the atmosphere around that game, the build up for it has been going on for so long. We're all looking forward to it. And this is what happens when you build up something; it's not quite there. But Sunderland aren't going to care. They've won. They've beaten Newcastle. They've also, because if had Newcastle won that, they would have gone above Sunderland. So it's a perfect bragging rights for them. and it's showing that that system at Sunderland does work. It'd be interesting to see what happens from the weekend because they lose 7 players to AFCON, which is the team who are going to lose the most players. But yeah, it was not. I won't say it was a cracking game of football, cracking atmosphere, cracking heritage and prestige around the game. I just can't wait to see what happens when we see the reverse fixture at St James's Park and see. Hopefully, it's a bit more of an entertaining spectacle.
I'll tell you, the informed team in the Premier League at the moment is one Aston Villa, Unai Emery's team. They've won their last 6 games. They're third in the table with 33 points. They're breathing down the neck as well of City and Arsenal. At the weekend, they went down to London and they got a 3-2 win at West Ham. They were 2-1 down at the break, but a brace for Rodgers on the 50th and 79th minute. An own goal, actually, from the West Ham player Mavro Panos meant that Aston Villa came out the winners in that game. They dominated possession as well, but again, not many shots on target. Like 10 shots to West Ham, 7 to Villa, but they were both very efficient in their scoring.
Yeah, very much so. But first of all, I've got to say, what has happened with Aston Villa?
Oh,
I remember at the start of doing the series of the podcast, and was saying they can't even score a goal yet. What's happened here? And then what now? Every single week the finisher seems to get more and more spectacular. We've seen some brilliant goals. The 9th consecutive win under Unai Emery, so we know that he's a brilliant manager. And it seems as though every week as this goes on and on and on, we keep thinking it could happen. It could be another Leicester City story. I wouldn't quite say they're in the tight. They're obviously in the hunt for European football. That's not a shadow of a doubt. I'm not going to quite use the T word just yet because it wasn't exactly an easy win for the Villa. But yeah, you can't lie. They are doing phenomenally well. We've got some brilliant players in there who are gelling so well. And yeah, Arsenal, we thought they would have an easy ride with just having City breathing down the neck. They've now got Aston Villa as well. If any team was going to win the league, I'd love it to be Aston Villa because it would be arguably, would it trump the Leicester City story? Not quite so much, but it would definitely be up there as being one of those
mhm.
fairy tale stories.
It's interesting when you look at their goal difference because they've scored 25, they've conceded 17. If you compare that with Arsenal, who are top, it's scored 30, conceded 10, or City, who've scored 38 but conceded 16. It's interesting. So their goal difference is 8, but they sit third in the table, 33 points, and they're the only team in the Premier League that have had back-to-back wins over the last 6 games, at least. So really well done
The,
to them.
the other thing you can't forget as well is we keep with Villa, they're actually doing quite well in European football as well. I know it's the Europa League, but they're in third place. They're level on points with Lyon, who are top of the league. So it's not as if it's just a fluke because we keep seeing with a lot of the teams, look at Liverpool, for instance, struggling in the league, come to European football, they seem to be performing pretty well. Aston Villa seem to be the all-round Swiss Army team at the moment. They'll be looking to go quite a way in the Europa League and also go quite a way up the Premier League table. But we're obviously going to be playing them pretty soon. We're playing them on the 21st of December. So I'm hoping it's not going to be it was going to be an interesting game anyway. I'm hoping that we can be the team to stop the consecutive runs in their tracks. I don't want them to get their 10th consecutive win against us. But as I said, they've got a difficult run of games. They've got United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Forest, Crystal Palace, Spurs in the FA Cup, and then Fenerbahce in European football, all before the end of January. That's quite an interesting. That will be a test certainly for Unai Emery's consecutive run. But yeah, they're doing phenomenally well, and something tells me they might get a fair few points in that difficult run of games as well.
In the league game on Sunday at the G-Tech Community Stadium, it was a case of the former Scousers leveling things off. Jordan Henderson scored on the 70th minute from Brentford, and then Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored for Leeds in the 82nd minute. It meant that game ended 1-1, and also Brentford had a penalty decision overturned by VAR, but it leaves Brentford in 14th place, Leeds in 17th place. So after Sunday, at the moment at the bottom of the table, Leeds are just propping or just towards the bottom, 17th place, 3 points between them and West Ham. But West Ham are on I don't know, it broken their duck because Burnley have lost all the last six games, so have Wolves. At least West Ham have managed to get points almost in three, four
Mhm.
of their last six games, which it's going to be a tight down there, isn't it?
It is, but I've got to hold my hands up because I made a claim on this podcast to say that Daniel Farke wasn't going to be the man to lead Leeds. He'd be under pressure. And then since I said that, I don't know if you listened to the podcast or what, if they have it on in the dressing room before a game at Ellen Road, but they seem to be he seems to be proving his worth. The fact that they came so close against City, they've just got draws against Brentford as well. He seems this new system that he's introduced really seems to be giving Leeds some survival hope. And as much as I don't like Leeds as a Manchester United fan, I think they're a fantastic asset to the Premier League. And yeah, I think I got it wrong with Farke, and I think I wasn't the only one who's got it wrong as well. So he'd be looking to get a couple more wins as well. But I'll hold my hands up and say Farke. He's not quite the one, but he seems to be doing a pretty good job anyway up in Yorkshire.
Just before we move to Monday night's games, there was a rumor on the gossip mill. I think it was BBC gossip, but Tottenham are considering replacing Thomas Frank, who's under pressure, with a former Barcelona boss, Xavi. He's definitely under pressure, whether it be, but the Tottenham are that sort of tinkering club, aren't they? They like a little management change. They got itchy fingers in the boardroom. Do you not think?
I do, and they always like to have their finger just on the button on the email which says, "We're very, very sorry, sir," but I feel like they shouldn't be sending that email to Thomas Frank because, as I've said, I think he's a fantastic coach. When United were first looking for a boss, I think Thomas Frank, I would have had him as one of my top three candidates. I know at Brentford, he sort of that was his team, that was his baby. He was allowed a lot of time to sort of nurture that club. At Tottenham, it's the one club, well, one of the clubs where you don't have an awful lot of time. I think Xavi, first of all, would Xavi go to Tottenham? I'm not quite so sure. I have to see how much you get paid to go there. But also, as well, I don't really think he's the man to lead a club like Tottenham Hotspur. I think give as I said, always give a manager at least two or three windows. I think Frank needs a lot more time than what he's had. He has he's done an okay job, but as we know with the Premier League, especially with someone like Tottenham who are charging so much to get their fans in, and we know what Spurs fans are like. They want to see the results and they want to see them quickly. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that there's another manager who's under pressure, but I'm sure that Thomas Frank will be on the Tottenham Hotspur 2026 calendar. If you're a fan of Tottenham and you want to purchase it, I'm sure he'll be on at least one or two of the months anyway.
Talking about managers under pressure, the new Celtic manager, apparently Nancy, is off to a bad start. Apparently, he's lost all three of his opening games. And with the Martin O'Neill having done so well before that, the loss to Celtic in the league at the weekend meant that yeah, he's apparently under pressure. Not helped by the fact that Martin O'Neill says he would have loved to have stayed on. So yeah, it's just big clubs are sometimes difficult, aren't they?
They they very much are. It was a strange appointment from Nancy. The fact they brought in Nancy, who he was the MLS coach of the season. He'd done very well up in Canada as well. But you would have thought with the boost that Martin O'Neill had given that Celtic squad, you thought it would have been quite a good and long honeymoon period for him. But it's been a torrid start for him. It's the first time a Celtic manager has lost his first three games at the helm. And the thing that will make it doubly worse for them is the fact that they lost in the Scottish League Cup final to St Mirren. We've only won the competition once before, and you would have thought Celtic being the juggernauts of Scottish football, that would have been an easy game. I'm very surprised the fact that Martin O'Neill wasn't given the job. I would have thought that he would have stepped away because he could have left on a positive term. We've seen a number of times managers have come back and they've stayed a little bit too long and sort of tarnished their reputation. It wouldn't surprise me if they'd be quick to call Martin O'Neill up again and say, "Can you come back? We got it wrong." But yeah, not the sort of start to life for the French coach. And yeah, they're playing tonight at Dundee, and if they lose that, I think there will be even more question marks around his future.
Let's talk about the 8 goal thriller killer on Monday night, because this is a game where I've actually heard so many people come away with some positive remarks about it. Yet, when you're 2-1 up at the halftime and then you give away a lead and you end up 4-4 against AFC Bournemouth, you sort of think, where are the positives to take from the game? And interestingly, United, they threw away the lead apparently 3 times. At one stage, it looked like they were about to lose the record of not having lost at Old Trafford after leading at half time. That stretches back to 1984. They managed to make it, but you were there. I was at Robert Plant instead. What did you from this game?
Well, I thank God for Le Mans' right calf muscle because the conversation we'd be having right now would be very, very different. That game of football was just best way to describe it. It was mad or bonkers. It was sort of the last sort of not the last dance, but the sort of the farewell for our right hand side as they go off to AFCON, and it was an interesting game of football because Bournemouth have been when they come to Old Trafford always around this Christmas period. They've performed very well. They've won by 3 goals to nil, and with the start we had, we thought, hey, we could do pretty well, but I think. For me, it was some brilliant work from Bruno Fernandes, a fantastic free kick. But the first half, we only sort of scored from. It seemed like Bournemouth mistakes. Bournemouth were being they've been on a little bit of a rut down in 15th in the league. They didn't really know what they're doing, and we countered from pretty much mistakes on Bournemouth. And then the start of the second half, I was still in the queue trying to get a drink, and the cheers galore. And I'm thinking someone's being sent off because there was a Semenyo should have been sent off for for gripping a player around the neck, but he wasn't. So I thought it was something to do with that. And I've come back, and the time it's taken me to get a lukewarm can of Madry, they've managed to take the lead and apparently in pretty emphatic style. So yeah, it was a bonkers game of football. Old Trafford, when they scored that fourth goal, it was absolutely roaring. And I think there was an even bigger roar from when Le Mans saved it with his right calf. Because I'm telling you now, if that was an honouring goal, it would be a very, very different atmosphere coming out of the ground. But hey, at least that baby of 368 wins. I think he was saying it was since 1918 or something ridiculous that we haven't lost after scoring first in the first half. That's safe, but yeah, interesting, and it sort of says a lot about the game of football if it's bonkers or mad. If one of the biggest talking points is a T-shirt that Kobe Mainoo's brother was wearing, I think that says an
Oh,
awful lot about the game as well.
I mean, Cobby's got to get his bloody house in order. He really has. That lad is not either. It's all a premeditated plan, and it's all about keeping the pressure on there. But it just, I mean, this free Kobe Annan, you would think he was Nelson bloody Mandela.
Yeah,
It's the guy is not in friggin' jail here. He's getting paid handsomely. His job is to turn up and be a good footballer. Unless the club have got some sort of issue, and I don't know why they would. Maybe there is, but sometimes your family can let you down, and in this case, he needed to control his brother.
I also think the
Am I
timing of
wrong?
this
What
is
do you
no.
think?
I think you're right, but I think the timing of this is just is bizarre because all going into this game, the biggest talking point was the manager going to say change the system? He's talking about going to a 4-3-3, and if you do a 4-3-3, that's where Mainu comes in that midfield three, and pretty much because, as I said, we're going to lose this entire right side.
Yep.
Now's
Yep.
the time for Mainu to come into the squad, and the biggest role pretty much on the night was when Mainu came on, and he had a good half an hour, 40 minutes, I would say, and
Half
on
an
that
hour.
on
Yep.
4 games he pulls that shirt out. I'd be interested to know was Mainu involved with this or not, or is it just his brother trying to get some clout on social media? But when as I mentioned, the first 2 goals came from mistakes. Nothing was really being generated. When Mainu came on, that's where United looked dangerous, creating chances and looking to actually give Bournemouth a good game because we were good at snatching on mistakes and scoring on the counter. We know United were good at that. But when Mainu came on, it seemed like we were the controlling force in that game. And that was thanks to Mainu. This is the opportunity for him, as Amram said, to get some players into the squad. And I think Mainu is first on his list. And yeah, I think if that has like foiled or fumbled any plans of the manager, I think it's going to be an interesting conversation at the Christmas dinner table. That's for sure.
I didn't know if it was some sort of like projection of himself as Nelson Mandela, or the free Kobe Mane was more about what his price or his value would be in the transfer,
Mm-hmm.
But it was bizarre. I've got to say, it was bizarre. What a bizarre game! But and I'll tell you what I find interesting is you mentioned the great save from Le Mans, and you would typically look at a keeper and say he shipped 4 goals here, but he's doing all right, isn't he?
Yeah, he's since he's come in. I'll tell you what, my blood pressure has certainly dropped a considerable amount. Um, it'd be helpful had the manager brought him in sooner. But no, he's been brilliant. Le Mans, he's I know when a goalkeeper concedes 4 goals, you're thinking, what's happened there? But it was a decent free kick, and it was just counter attacking football. I think he will his right calf will be valued at a tremendous amount of money because that was a brilliant save. He had some phenomenal saves that really kept United in that game, and arguably got them a well deserved point. But yeah, Le Mans, I think with him in that squad, I think losing those integral players, I know it's going to hit us hard for the whole of December, losing Mbumo, losing Diallo, losing Mazraoui, but having a goalkeeper in there who we have some confidence in, I think it sort of softens the blow slightly. He was fantastic, and I can't wait to see the stats at the end of the season comparing how many points that he's actually secured us, because Bruno last season he had a fantastic stat with if you took Bruno out of that squad, we would have been relegated. I'd be interested to see if that's the case with Le Mans as well, because do you know what, I think he's been a fantastic player, and it wouldn't surprise me if they're shifting a fair few kits with Le Mans on the back of the shirt, because that's the impact he's had at that club.
Our defense is weak at the moment, and but actually, interestingly, when you look at the shots and the XG, we had an XG of 3.29 on Monday night. Bournemouth had an XG of 1.86. We had 25 shots on target; they had 14. But we both had 9 shots on target and both scored 4 goals. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what that says to me is, as much as our defense is weak, we're still not clinical enough
Mm-hmm.
up the front, and of course, as you say, we're losing a couple of those players to the AFCON. It'll be interesting.
I think the last thing I sort of want to say in terms of highlights or positives from the game, because I think the scoreline just takes everything out of it. Everything I was going to say has sort of gone out the window. But I think Heaven at the back, I think he's done pretty well. I know we've got the absence of Maguire and Delict. At the West Ham game, which I went to, he looked very, very shaky. He got an early yellow card. It was his opportunity to get into the team. I thought, oh, that's it, done now. And because he was subbed off early, but at Wolves, he looked solid. Bournemouth, he looked pretty good as well. I think he's been an absolute bargain picking him up from Arsenal. I think he really paid something like 1.5 million for him. He looks like he's going to be a very, very good prospect. Luke Shaw as well. I don't really think he's really put a foot wrong at the back. I think Dallo, there's some question marks, but he's had 2 pretty decent games. I think the biggest loss that we've had so far is Delict. I think he's been out the team, and that's where we've been looking really, really shaky. That's a concern for me. But another positive, Sesko came back into the squad. I know he'd been struggling with some food poisoning this week. I think that's what the papers had said. But he was going up for every single ball, not chasing after every single one like Hoyland seemed to do, but he seemed to be being that physical presence up top. So if we can get everybody back and in full form, if as long as we get the simple basics right and get some confidence, we never know what could happen. But yeah, I think Heaven is a perfect example of it. May be a little bit shaky at first, but you get some confidence, and crucially, you get minutes under your belt and not playing cold, and you can see the quality of the players we do have.
Do you know what? It seems to be a case of heaven knows we're not as miserable now as we could have been. Actually,
I
it's
like
it's
that. I
weird.
like that. That would have been a much better T-shirt to show at Old Trafford rather than free Kobe Mainu.
But coming back to Kobe with the AFCON coming up and the players we're going to lose, we actually can't afford to sell or to loan them out in this January
Mhm.
period. Really,
I,
can we?
no, not at all. And that wouldn't surprise me why the club refused to let him go out on loan. Also, as well, it wouldn't surprise me because I don't think Ruben Amorim pays attention to the Championship because he said that Harry Amas isn't performing well in the Championship, yet he's just got Sheffield Wednesday Player of the Month. So that's a little bit of a concern for me, the fact that he's not keeping uh, tracks on the academy, especially because United has always been, the academy has always been integral to United's success. And this time of year as well, when we're losing so many players, what normally happens is we look to the academy and go, "You've done all right, let's get you in." So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this manager actually handles this situation. But as we said, when United's backs are against the wall, we seem to, I don't know what it is. We seem to get our ideas in order, and it wouldn't surprise me. Kobe Mainu, he will be pretty much playing the majority of this December period.
Yeah, it's interesting. My son Adam went bonkers at how the Amrin called out some of the loney players in a negative way this week, and he said that just it's not on, just not on, and
Mm-hmm.
you sort of think that's not good. It's either deflection, or it's sloppy, or it's ill considered, but it was bad actually, and I thought it was careless at the very best
Mm-hmm.
actually. But anyway, it's and we probably need to pull in some of these players, and we
Mm-hmm.
desperately do need to keep. I think we need to keep Menu because Afghan's gonna hurt. But there you go. Right, let's take a quick look at actually I've seen that apparently we're open to offers for Manuel Ugarte in January apparently.
I, I wouldn't be surprised to be honest. He's not really taken the world by storm since he's come in. I think he's one. If you're going to sort of, I know we've lost our bomb squad, but if you're going to have a hit list of players you'd be willing to see walk out the door, I think he would probably be on that list because he's sort of just being there to sort of as a temporary fix. He doesn't really seem to be adding all too much. If we can get a little bit more money, and it means that we can trigger, say, like a Semenya release clause at 65 million, I think that's the sort of thing that the club will be looking at because yeah, Agate the prospect was brilliant. The actual product that we've received hasn't been
Yeah.
exactly what we'd hoped for.
I have to say I've been disappointed in him because I thought that he looked the right physical specimen to play
Mm,
that type of role in there, but not. Quickly going to the English League Cup last night, Chelsea were in the quarterfinals action. They won 3-1 at Cardiff City. Meanwhile, in the National League, it was Truro 2, Wealdstone 0. And in the National League Cup, Manchester United under 21s lost away at Tamworth, but disappointing result. And Halifax Town actually beat Newcastle under 21s 7-6 on penalties after it ended 0-0. And we'll stick with that. Coming up this week, then, let's have a quick look at what's going on in football. So tonight it's English League Cup action: City versus Brentford and Newcastle versus Fulham. I can't see anything other than a City win and a Newcastle win there personally, but we'll see. You never know.
mhm,
Celtic, were their managers under a little bit of pressure at the moment. They're in action against Dundee United in the Scottish Premiership, and there's some English or UEFA Champions League games tonight. And Manchester United are in action at Juve. That's always a nice
mhm.
tie, isn't it, in Italy when you go there? Arsenal are in 11. That's in Brussels, is it? Belgium, sorry. And Barcelona are in action as well in that competition. Let's go into the weekend, Harry. Let's see what we've got on at the weekend. The Friday night game is Swansea City versus Wrexham, and then on Saturday there is a bunch of Premier League games. Actually, we don't play until is it Monday night again or Sunday?
It's a Sunday. Thankfully, it's a Sunday for once.
Thank goodness, actually. We'll come back to that. The lunchtime game is Newcastle United versus Chelsea. That's a tidy game, isn't it?
Mhm.
Really tidy game. Both of them looking good. Tottenham host Liverpool at
Yeah, I
time.
think that's the other. the other tasty one, and possibly as well, maybe the one that could surprise us is the Everton Arsenal game. I think Everton could give Arsenal a good game there.
Tea time game or evening game actually on Saturday, and there'll be lots of jingle bells actually right across it. City host West Ham. You got to say West Ham. You might be looking at a big score there actually, and that'll be interesting. The other nighttime game is Leeds United versus Crystal Palace. This go down to quickly into Alti. When do they play next? This is
Play on Friday night at Rochdale. And then the game after that is the Boxing Day clash away at Halifax Town again. I don't know what it is this season, but the last 3 seasons we've had United have always played Bournemouth before Christmas, and Oldie have always played Halifax on Boxing Day. So
we're
very
we're
bizarre.
We're playing, Ulti are playing at home on Friday night.
Yes, at Rochdale, top of
Rochdale.
the
Yeah,
league.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, I would go to that, only I'm out seeing Trevor Horn and his big band. So I can't go to that, but there you go. So, and then Sunday, quickly, it is Aston Villa versus Manchester United. This is a tough game for
Yeah,
United.
it could be a very difficult game, but at the same time, it'd be a brilliant way to get some points away from home. I think Villa have been a very strong team, but I think as well what we saw last night. I think United we can score goals, and we could give them a very good game, but at the same time it could go the opposite way. But yeah, I'd be very much watching this with a bit more confidence. I know we lost. I know it's a draw of 4-4, but that game's sort of given me a little bit of confidence going into this one. So hopefully we can get a result here, and then also Newcastle on Boxing Day, the two big games around the festive period for United.
Well, we're going to hopefully do another one of these before the Christmas break, but I hope it's a case on Sunday if heaven knows we're not miserable now. Yeah, that's been the Theatre of Dreams podcast. You just had myself and Super Harry Morel. Harry, good to see you, and hopefully see you before Christmas.
Hopefully see before Christmas, and hopefully we see at least 6 points for United. That's what I want for Christmas. Not with two front teeth, 6 points for the Christmas period.
All I want for Christmas is 6 points. Absolutely. Anyway, we'll hopefully be talking to you before Christmas break. And this is the Theatre Dreams podcast. Hopefully, Aaron will be back with us as well. Take care until then. Bye bye.